Do you have any announcements?
No, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Not hearing any. Before we move on, who's with us electronically?
Mr. President, Melissa Antias.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
Hey. I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Aye.
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 Aye. The agenda is approved. Public forum. Anybody here wishing to speak? Oh, you're gonna see it. Ma'am, your name?
Adriana Asherson. I'm a planner with Washington County.
Oh.
In contact. I'm
Oh,
just here to listen.
thank you very much. Thank you for attending. We hope we don't bore you.
I'm sure you will.
Okay, thank you. All right. The extent of that, the consent calendar. Any, yes, ma'am.
So just before you guys do the consent calendar, I just want to let you know that item E, permit 2024-21, Edith Poppy's Ranch, I can't say that. That's my client. And so Lucy Wegscheider specifically, she is present. I don't know that it needs to be pulled for any reason, but I just wanted to make that disclosure. I don't see any conflict, or you would have heard from me before now, but just so you all know, it's my client.
Yes, ma'am. So the only item we have that I have, unless any of the managers have anything, a couple of the managers know about the name. So if you could tell us one more time how we received that colorful name for your properties.
I have two little dogs, one's named Peanut, one's named Poppy.
Okay.
It's pretty.
Great. With that said, does anybody have anything they'd like to pull?
Yeah, I'd like to
Rick?
pull the treasure report.
Oh, very good, sir. Okay. Are there any other items? Okay, not hearing any more. I would like to make a motion to approve the the consent calendar without the treasurer's report. Do I have a second?
Second.
So moved and seconded.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
It is approved. Now, let's move to the treasurer's report. Rick?
I just wanted to make note of the change in the treasurer's report. Primarily. So the one that came in the mail and as email, you've got a fresh copy, an updated copy.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. And
Very good, sir.
it was pretty straightforward. It's just a matter of which fund it was coming out of for the expenses this month. Since we're switching banks, it's not, we're still working our way through the process of figuring out where they ought to go on the back. on the
Okay.
back page.
Has that been squared away?
Yes, it's squared away, so.
Okay. All right, very good.
Yes, I'd like to move approval of the treasurer's report.
I will second that. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
It is approved. Thank you, everybody. Let's move on to our next item. Dates and requests from the partners, business and reports. Auditor. Andy, welcome. Good to see you again, sir. Thank you. Much of you guys are gonna nail us for this year. Wow.
Whatever was in the contract.
Good answer. Would you like to lead us?
Sure,
Okay,
I'll
please.
just stay right here if that works.
Certainly.
I don't have any fancy presentation tonight,
Oh,
but
that's
we
fine.
completed the audit
Okay.
and dated the reports last week. I believe drafts went out in your packets, but they have since been finalized.
Okay,
The one change from your drafts was the allocation of the property taxes. Fewer dollars went to the water quantity projects fund. And more dollars went to the other funds because the property purchase in 2023 was not meant to be covered by property taxes. That was covered by bond proceeds previously issued. So we made an adjustment. So you'll see when looking at the final financial statements, that fund balance in the water quantity projects fund did decrease. I wrote it down here, about $270,000 because of that property purchase as expected. The fund balance of the general fund decreased about $1,000 during the year. And that's actually a few $1,000s in deficit, so that's something to keep an eye on. But the fund balance and all the other funds did increase during the year, so overall, nothing surprising as far as the finances. We issued a clean opinion on the financial statements. It's an unmodified opinion is the technical term. It's the highest level of opinion the organization can receive. So when we're auditing the financial statements, the objective of the audit is not to audit every single transaction or make sure everything is nailed down to the penny, but we're looking for any material misstatements. Those would be misstatements that might affect the decisions of the financial statement users. So we did not detect any material misstatements. Again, a clean opinion on the 2023 financial statements. In the document, there is a report on the internal controls. Those are essentially your policies and procedures over finances.
Yeah.
We look to make sure no one person has too much responsibility in any certain area. At Red Path, we help you with the books on a monthly basis, and then we audit, but those are done by completely separate people. So our audit procedures are no different than if a third party had performed the finances for the organization. So internal controls, we're looking for also to make sure the disbursements are properly approved. Receipts are coded correctly, that sort of thing. Just one note on approval of disbursements. I've seen, not with Valley Branch, but just more fraud, and I've heard more stories of fraud lately. A vendor calling up, hey, we've got a change of address, send my check here versus the former address. So if you get something, hear of something suspicious like that, call them back. You know, if you get an email, hey, can you send the check here? Or I need this money quickly, can you wire it to us instead of paying by check? Just radar should go up, and we're paying attention to that at Red Path too. I keep hearing more and more instances of that type of thing going on. So overall, how Valley Ranch spends its money and looking at those disbursements is really the primary risk that we identify when conducting the audit. So we're looking closely at those disbursements and did not note any discrepancies. Gives you some idea of the types of things we're looking for the audit. So no findings related to internal control. So good news to report there. There's also a report on legal compliance. The state auditor's office issues a guide that must be completed as part of the audit. Right. So we test to make sure you have sufficient collateral on your deposits, that if there's bids, you're following the bidding requirements. There's certain rules related to conflicts of interest. There's more statutes, of course, relating to expenditures and various policies that you must be following. So we're looking for that as part of the audit as well. And we did not note any findings of non-compliance. So it's a clean legal compliance report as well. That completes the main official reports that are in the financial statement document. And then there's also this letter, it's called Communication with Those Charged with Governance, where it's a required letter from the auditor to the Board of Managers. So those are various, most are just boilerplate language, required communications, reminder that there are estimates in the financial statements It also notes that we did not encounter any difficulties during the audit. I have good news there. Everybody we worked with was responsive to our requests, no disagreements. There is one item that I noted on the third page of that document. Just a reminder that there is still about, at least as of the end of 23, about $1.7 million of unspent bond proceeds. And I know you've worked with the bond attorneys and with that, just kind of monitoring that, because there are certain stipulations. If that money goes unspent, certain guidelines that need to be followed.
Right.
So I think you dug into that somewhat. It is confusing what exactly those funds can be applied for, but right. Something that we continue to be aware of. I know it's tracked by the engineer. You went through and kind of did an overview and went back and remapped out all those expenditures since the issuing of the first of those two bonds. So that was a good process to go through. That's in that letter, just to remind everybody of the situation there.
Yeah,
really?
We're working on that. That's okay.
Yeah.
We want to get that squared away.
So overall, no negative news to report. There's no action I believe the managers need to take other than simply approving of the audit, but no follow-up on any findings or anything like that. That's what I have tonight, but I'd be happy to answer any questions as well.
That's wonderful. Let's see, do the managers have anything by chance?
Just since we have a visitor who's Washington County planner, I thought a question may have popped in our mind as to why we're purchasing property and issuing bonds. And I wondered if we might just give a brief explanation so you know why we're buying property. I don't know. Do you want to do that, John, or you want me to, or?
Sure, Mr. President, managers, audience, back in 2019, 2020, parts of Valley Branch experienced severe flood in the landlocked areas, basins that are landlocked, especially up in the Sunny Brook Lake area in Grant, adjacent to Keats Avenue and Squawk Quarters. Prior to that, the managers had done a lot of studies to determine how to manage a flooding situation and if you could create outlets that might lower the water level. The cost of that was more than the cost of the assessed value of homes, and it would also cause future operation and maintenance issues once completely solve the problem. So the potential that the flood. So the then president of the board and I met with the residents and talked about that reality. And the managers had several public meetings and ultimately decided to implement a voluntary acquisition project, the program. Just as they implemented that program, 2019, 2020 flooding became very severe. And so instead of a slow process in purchasing these flood-prone homes, there was a lot of interest in the Watershed District purchasing them. Watershed District didn't have cash on hand to purchase them, and so the Watershed District obtained two bonds. One is an unrated bond, and one is a rated bond, and rated with a AA plus, or a very high rating. So the managers have 5 years to spend that money, and are working hard to try to do that.
Thank you, John. Excellent. Good clarification. Nice. All right. The managers have any other items? Okay, now, what's our next step? Do we need to approve anything this evening, or are we going to receive the, this is the draft.
This is the draft, the final documents, the PDF of the final documents, were emailed to the treasurer.
Okay.
So,
You have them, right?
Yep.
So we're squared away on that.
Yes.
There's no signage required.
my signature. Um, And I don't know who, if I should be forwarding those to, to other managers or.
I would recommend you forward to the other managers, yes. And then there's also reporting requirements with the state and Bowser that we will take care of on your behalf. So we'll make sure we'll make sure the reporting to those two agencies is accomplished.
Okay.
But the
I know.
finalized report.
It is
Yeah,
used.
Mr. President, managers, Andy, if you could send that to me like the final electronic version, I'll work with Melissa and see to get it posted to watch this stuff.
Okay.
Very good. Andy, once again, we thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate you making your annual visit,
And it was a yes.
and all is well, and we're glad we remain healthy and clean.
Thank you.
With that said, thank you very much, sir.
You're welcome.
We will be in touch.
Have a good evening, everybody.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you again, Andy.
Lot for the.
All right. We squared that away. Permit, administrator engineer, permit 2024-15. Phil on Lake Elma. Mr. Engineer,
It's the wrong agenda. I'm on it.
that's okay.
If it's like, John, we discuss it all.
Sure.
This is the one we approved at the last meeting, and we had also, just prior to this, approved one on permit on Lake de Montreville. It was very similar to this, and on that one, we waived the requirement for the easement, Valley Branch easement along the shoreline under your flood level. And this one is virtually, as far as situation, this one is virtually identical, and it was not discussed at the time of the permit. And so Engineer Hanson discussed it with me, and I said I'd like to get it on the agenda for this meeting to see if the board was willing to waive that requirement on this one also, make them consistent.
Seems simple enough.
Yep.
There's no beef, and I don't know if Attorney Torset has had a chance to look at this. Any irregularities, anything you want to?
No, well, I mean, if I'm understanding the logic behind it, that a Valley Branch permit would not be needed because there are already existing protections. Then,
Exactly.
Well,
Right.
the condition, the permit is still needed. The Watershed District rules say that under certain situations, the managers may waive the requirement for a drainage easement up to 100 flood elevation, for example, sand blankets. That's directly in the Watershed District rules. And so in this situation, the managers didn't talk about that issue and whether to waive the easement or not with the permit. But to be similar to past permits, Manager Brock's intended motion was to waive that easement.
and that I understand. I was just saying that the rationale behind wanting to waive the easement for this particular permit, because it's not a sand blanket, right? It's because the location where the easements would be, there's already an existing easement. What you're saying is along the shoreline where the easements would be.
No, they're not existing. There's just, with the shoreline regulations and everything within that 100-year flood level, if that's something, it's not likely something would be developed there. That's my thought process.
Very good.
And again, where we need the easements to protect infrastructure needed for water quality or quantity or other reasons, or to prevent future development, 100-year floodplain. Those are very valid reasons for it, but I just wonder about the benefit in this instance.
Simple enough. Okay. Does this require anything from us? Do we need to make a motion on this?
Yeah.
Yes, you should make a motion to waive the easement requirements if that's the board's intent.
Okay. Mr. Brock, would you like?
I will make the motion to waive the easement requirement, Valley Branch easement requirement on permit number 2024-15.
Okay. Very good, sir.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Aye.
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 Passes. Very good. Thank you. Next item. Lake Elmo Airport Stormwater Volume Control. Don't you want to tell us about that?
So just measures.
Yeah.
I decided to put this in the packet and so the managers could have a short discussion on it and ask me questions if they have them. Some of you might remember there was quite a bit of review and public input regarding the expansion at the Lake Elmo Airport. The Metropolitan Airports Commission chose to meet the Watershed District's volume control rule by having forced evaporators. Some of you visited the site and did a tour where they basically push air down and that creates a mist and that accelerates natural evaporation.
Helicopters.
They're required to submit a report to the Watershed District. They did that, and in that report, their calculations, they used a couple different methods, but their calculations show that they did not meet the Watershed District's volume control rule in 0.3. They said that they would be making adjustments so that they will be able to make it or predict that they'd be able to make the Valley Branch Watershed District volume control requirement in future years. So the letter is asking them for an update on those measures, and then it gets into some technical issues on their approach that they use to the two different calculations. So I just wanted to bring this up to the managers, and I did put it on Valley Branch letterhead as a draft with President Marchand's signature. If that's appropriate, we can finalize it.
That's fine. Yes. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt as you
No,
know.
no.
So I just have a really simple question, so simple that it could be one of those stupid ones, but which I'm really good at, by the way, but. So 2.2 million gallons, would that be an estimate specifically for 2023 relative to the amount of rainfall? Because what if we have an extreme drought and it's not possible to evaporate 2.2 million gallons?
Yeah, as President Manager Pereira, the agreement that Valley Branch Watershed District and Max signed said on average conditions, that's 2.2 million. But so last year it was during the growing season, there wasn't a lot of runoff. But surprisingly, last year was pretty average if you look at the annual precipitation. So the requirement is to have this 2.2 million, whether it's a drought year or a very wet year.
When did we get, I know that December was, that what probably close to average.
And the early part, the winter months of 2023 were exceedingly high with all the snow, if you remember.
Oh, that's right.
And then the summer months were generally low, but then September and some of the later months were again high. So I was surprised about that. Josh, in preparing the annual report, that precipitation information is included in that, and I had him go back and look at the records 2 or 3 times because that didn't jive with my memory of how dry last year was. But at Lake Elmo Airport, where the precipitation information is taken, it was above average last year.
Now driving by it, it looks pretty high. The ponds are high and they're not using their evaporators at this point, but don't see anything coming across the road, nothing like that. But I'll ask our inspector if he has any words on that when his time comes.
President Motion, no, I don't have any comments at this point.
Okay.
I'll make sure, well, when I'm out, that I'll see if those are up and running.
So I haven't seen or made any changes that are required, or in my opinion. So if none of the managers have anything,
John, what are your feelings on why it's not meeting some of the stuff, some of the technical jargon I can't really follow, but why isn't it working as promised?
I guess I don't really know. I think they maybe, the vendor maybe oversold it to Mac on the components. I don't know if these forced evaporators have been used in this part of the state, and so maybe there's a difference just based on the local climate compared to where they use them before.
And if this continues to be an issue, what would our next steps be?
The Watershed District does have a very large bond as surety on this project. And the agreement that the Watershed District has with MAC says that if they don't achieve the required volume, that they need to take other measures, possibly including pumping the water into trucks and disposing it also.
surety would cover that, that's for sure. I think we have over what, $1 million on that? No.
I believe it's over that. I think
Okay.
it's over that, but I guess I don't know by how much.
No.
So maybe they could truck it to White Bear Lake.
Rick, that might be a good idea. Oh my goodness, okay. All right then. So, we just need to direct you to, make this so, and then I'll sign it, either electronically or in person, whatever you'd like me to do. Very good. Okay. That's all we have on this. Move on. Next item, of course, is Attorney Torsa. Anything, ma'am?
So I apologize. I didn't realize that I didn't get the most current draft to John by last Friday, of this for your packet. We talked about this 2 weeks ago. I don't know. Oh. Pardon?
Lauren talked about it.
Oh, yeah, okay. It's so, and Lauren discussed it last week. Okay, good. So I've had some communication with the property owner, and really he's agreed to the terms. We've come to an agreement on the terms of the memorandum itself. The current
Right.
sticking point is the vegetation maintenance schedule plan. And his response last Saturday, he sent an email saying, you know, I really want this guaranteed. Oh, once a year. I don't understand why the district is, I'm paraphrasing. Why are they so hung up on being in control of when we mow? We've always mowed once. And I responded on Tuesday, just saying, that here, let me highlight, and here where you have a guaranteed mow, and it was, what's the word? A pretty, like before everything comes up.
Dormant.
Like, thank you.
Okay.
And then just, I pulled the rules. Section 4 talks about buffers and just highlighted, and there's actually a section specific to Valley Creek, and just sent it to him and said, here's the rationale. You know, I'm not gonna try and explain it to you. These are the rules. And I haven't heard back. So really, he's fine with the access. We've agreed on virtually all terms. It's just that sticking point. So that's where it stands. So communication hopefully will continue. That's a project. So
If I may, just a little elaboration on that. I see the email. What's going typically? Do they do it more often or closer to the creek, or what is he suggesting?
Well, Mr. President, managers, so many of you have visited the site. I believe that they mow maybe only once a year within the banks of the creek, but they mow more frequently above the banks. Because as you've seen, it's kind of a park-like setting for much of the banks. Watershed District rules require unmowed vegetated buffers within 100 feet of the water's edge on both sides.
Okay, the one concern I have is, I'm not exactly sure why they mow. I'm sure there's plenty of good reasons, but one concern I have is the emergence of buckthorn. And that's certainly one way of controlling it, but nothing has come up for justification for what he wants to do, correct? Or
Mr. President, he has mentioned controlling buckthorn and other invasive species like green canary grass for the reason for mowing. When prior to Valley Branch receiving a grant on this program, communications with the DNR said that they would not issue a permit for the project if it didn't include deep-rooted natural vegetation, native vegetation at the whole. Because they felt that if the goal of the project is to lower the overbanks of the creek so that the water, when it does bounce up, it can get out of the incised channel and get into overbanks. And so there's less erosion power, right? And so if the water gets out of its banks more frequently, and there isn't good vegetation that holds those banks, it could really scour out. So the DNR is concerned about that. Rightfully so concerned, it wants deeper vegetation to stabilize those.
and that can happen.
That can happen. Of course, we haven't designed the project yet and developed a vegetation plan for the overbanks yet. That would be once this agreement with the landowner is signed, we would start surveying the project and utilizing those grant funds to do that, developing a vegetation plan and then a management plan for that, which likely would include mowing until the native vegetation gets established. It might include mowing after that too, or it might include spot spraying or some other mechanism. But the way the agreement currently is written is he is allowed to mow annually during the dormant season.
So we want to look at what our next step would be, work with Mr. Hartwell to see if what we talked about satisfies him, or if we need to implement something else.
Mr. President, he responded to Attorney Forsyth on Saturday, and as far as I know, there hasn't been any additional correspondence.
Well, I emailed
yeah,
him-
I'm sorry,
I was to say, I emailed him on Tuesday with that response, but I haven't heard back. Checking my- Missed. You know, I can email him again and say, let's, you know, if we're not making forward progress, let's have a conference call. And have engineer Hanson and I do a
Yes,
conference
ma'am.
call with them and see if we can make some headway that way.
I think that would be a good idea. Yeah. We want to satisfy Mr. Hartwell, but we also want to maintain our rules and certainly create this environment, you know. Okay, so we can leave it at that at this point, correct? All right. Very good. Thank you. Do the managers have any comments or questions regarding this matter? All right, let's move on. Mr. Inspector. Yeah,
When I saw the managers, I did, there was a report in the packet, and I do have a few updates for you.
okay.
You received that. If there are any questions on the report, they can address that, or I can elaborate on some updates. Yes, sir.
Just a question on that Tesla project again, that, you know, it's been the eternal, right? It appears that
Here comes
it's
the
been
update.
fixed now, finally. So,
It was fixed, and then we had a 1-inch rainfall, and now it is back again.
okay, so
So
I mean, as far as what the ultimate problem is, has not been identified. I know you I haven't figured out.
well, I had my suspicions. I
Yeah.
did go up there, up the retaining wall. It's about a 20-foot plus retaining wall that drops down to a slope like this to their curb at Tesla. And they did fill in some of the dropped area behind the curb with landscape rock, with a lot of rock. They didn't fix the curb where it was cracked. And I don't know that that's totally the problem, but the Tesla contractor, because of all the water issues, actually installed drain tile in back of the curb that empties into the storm catch basin. And it's running all the time, even when it's not raining. That drain tile is running into the storm sewer. So, which goes into their whole stormwater system, which they have a working infiltration basin. But there seems, maybe there's a number of things going on there. Is there, this site has underground storage system for water reuse, for irrigation. It has a number of these on the site. And there just happens to be one very near this problem. So is it the stormwater system leaking, the tank leaking? Is it, as my suspicions last time, the catch basin is not the lowest point for where the water goes, and so it's overtopping the curb? The interesting thing is, you know, the way retaining walls are built, they have weep holes and gravel behind them so water can drain down and go out. But the interesting thing about this is all the water goes to one spot, and it's enough to erode out this slope. Even though the landowner below has put down, like, has stabilized it at least 4 times now. And so I talked to somebody from the city of Lake Elmo this week because we had a number of pre-construction meetings. And all these issues are on private property. None of these are tied to any public facilities at all. So I guess it's on us and our permit and the property owner to try to figure out, what's on them to try to figure out what the problem is. We certainly have a surety. We haven't closed the permit out yet, but I would imagine that the Tesla dealership will be, I'm sure there'll be some letters going out pretty soon. They're not open for business yet, but it's a continuing issue, and I don't have any more answers. I just have my suspicions, and you know.
Okay, well, with that said, is there a chance that we might require further investigation? Like with our engineering people to have a look at this? I mean, it's upon them. They're going to pay for it, right?
It's upon them to identify the source of the problem and to correct it.
All right, so
So,
the question is,
Mr. President, Manager, these are some photos that Jeff sent a couple weeks ago with this area up above that thought might be part of the problem with the joints in the curb and water leaking through that, but there might be more issues than just that.
okay, so I guess pending any further rain events, I believe we have things coming up as far as I know with this, with these weather patterns. I guess we'll continue to inspect. Yes, sir.
Yeah, President Marshawn, they did have the builder of the retaining walls inspected this a couple of times, and they say that everything looks good, everything's sound, nothing is being undermined, and yet there's water coming up from the wall. So, and they did inspect, last year, they said they did inspect the grout work within the stormwater system. So I don't know where the water's coming from, other than in their holding tank or something. I just don't know where it's coming from. It's just so strange that this drain tile is continually running. You know, and it's not a flat area, it's a slope going down to this curve. So the water is coming, you know, gravity, it's coming down.
We get it.
So, yeah, so we'll continue to monitor and have discussions with them as they
Yes, sir. Please keep a close eye on that and see if we need to maybe prompt them or do something to mitigate this before we have any further experiences, you know, with what's happening.
I mean, as far as the water going in their drain tile emptying into their system, they have lots of capacity in their infiltration basin works. So, but we have an erosion issue caused by the neighboring properties system in some way. So that's
Okay.
not a good thing.
And we're pretty sure it's not being caused by beavers.
So far, I've not
We
seen
heard
it.
about it.
Well,
We heard about a recent one.
yeah, we'll have to circle back to that.
That's a beauty.
Any other questions on that? I do have some other updates if you.
Just my curiosity, are the storage tanks above the elevation of where the problem is occurring?
Yes. Yes. They are all above it. There's 6 of them. But one near this wall.
Wow.
I think they're plastic or something.
Polyethylene or something.
Something, yeah. Last Friday afternoon, I received a call from the city of Oakdale. Their SWIP inspector came across a BMP failure. The Roars apartment building had a unfinished pond that they were using as a settlement basin. It has a inlet in the bottom of it, and somehow the steel pressure plate on top of it moved. And the whole pond emptied into the storm water system. This is unfiltered, 2 years worth of sludgy sediment went down the stormwater system about 1,500 feet and emptied into a wetland to the north. That is not on their property. So I was out there and I talked with the excavator. They had BMPs in place at the flared-in section at the wetland, but the force of the water basically blew down the double silt fence, and the riprap that would normally knock some sediment was completely underwater. So they were able to get, you have 2 choices. You either stop the water flowing or you get a BMP in place and repair the BMPs.
Right.
I don't know that they could have covered this at that point. So they did repair the silt fence. They added extra silt logs and they put in flocculant packs
Right.
in the area between the flared-in section and the silt fence. And when I came back on Monday, everything had settled down. There was no water running and everything seems to have settled out. But in the meantime, did contact the Wetland Conservation Act to take a look at it to see if there's anything to be done, but it's kind of, the damage is done. It's a very low wetland area, but it was inundated with this water. On Monday, I met with the project manager and the excavator, and they still need to finish this pond, but I asked them to speak with their engineer of record and come up with a dewatering plan that doesn't involve sending the water down to the wetland. And there is a solution there for them. It's,
Oh, good. Okay.
there is a spot easily,
Right.
like pointed to an area that they could use against some silt fence in a non-wetland area. So they seem to have a dewatering plan because they need to get in and finish this basin, because it's a basin with an infiltration system and a retaining wall. And so, yeah, there's the pond itself. That's what was emptying it to the wetland right there. And today it is down to just a little bit in the bottom. So basically the whole pond emptied in, the whole basin emptied in to the wetland. Through a series of, through a structure with a weir and about 1,500 feet of storm sewer.
Okay. Further inspection. I have a question. I don't know how relevant this is. This is the flocculant packs. Were they big?
No,
They're little.
there were a series of them packed together like They were like this big, but they were sort of like sewed together, like packs of 5 that were thrown in there.
Chitin based? You
I
can,
don't
you have no
know.
idea.
I don't know what it
Yeah, I've
was.
seen that before.
But what it did do is anything that would come down from an following rainfall would hit that area and settle. So it did work in that area.
Yeah.
But I mean, the damage had already been done on that Friday. So for the most part, the damage had already been done.
All right, I guess we're gonna just keep an eye on them and see what we can do.
Yeah, I'll be out there
Thank you.
on a regular basis. I've been out there already this week. Silver Lake Outlet, I mentioned this to Rick, I stopped by there, the outlet is just running at a trickle, so nothing to report there. I was in the Sunnybrook area as well today,
Oh, nice.
and everything is looking low and no issues. I did meet with President Rashad. I know you're aware that there was this beaver dam backup off of
Right.
Jocelyn near 75th Street. The 3 property owners concerned about issues there. I did meet with Jeff Bird, who is the most impacted property owner. He has an outbuilding, a pole barn that is probably the most threatened by this. The rest of it is basically vegetation or trees. There's no homes threatened. He worked with the property owner who has the beaver dam on it,
Yeah,
and they implemented their own system they installed 4 6-inch PVC pipes with a screen on it through the dam to let the water flow. And it's working and the water's dropping, and so. It's
through the actual beaver dam.
Yeah. through the
Nice,
beaver
okay,
dam.
sure.
So he said, well, I've gone from a panic to just feeling uncomfortable now.
Oh,
He says, and I'm okay with uncomfortable.
okay, good.
So he's working with that property owner. The culvert that we've talked about in the past, that is collapsed or eroding, isn't impacted by this because the water is high enough where it's equalized. That's not the problem. The problem is the beaver dam itself and how effective it is.
And I know we talked about this briefly, but there's no concern with any inundation near any roads. That's still a ways. We don't anticipate anything like that if it were allowed to continue.
I did walk with a property owner immediately south of the beaver dam,
Right,
just to see, because the creek runs through there, just to see if they were having any issues, and everything looked fine.
okay,
So the water was flowing at just a moderate level, nothing to worry about. So they seem to have, at least at this point, solved the issue, and maybe they'll continue to work together
right.
and keep working at this. So
Yes, I guess he wants to keep his beavers.
yes.
Yeah.
And the Mr. Bird is perfectly fine with the beavers. He doesn't have an issue. He just doesn't want to get flooded.
Of course, yeah.
So that,
Very good, sir.
yes.
Okay, are we good? All right. Do
I
we
had
have
a
manager?
question on
Yes.
the Lake Elmo City Hall. What are the significant erosion and vegetation issues?
So,
Oh, yeah.
on the City Hall project, there was a stormwater swale that goes around the building and then comes down into a infiltration basin or trench, which does function, but the contractor did not properly stabilize the area before the basin last fall. They basically, sprayed it with some hydro mulch and threw some seed down, and it's all eroded away. There's silt fence in place, but it is starting to migrate into the basin. The city is aware of it and is in dispute with the contractor. And so they asked if I might write something on their, write something up as to my view on the whole thing and our permit. So they used that, they had pictures of it. So I can't understand what the why the contractor would challenge it. It was very evident if you looked at it that it wasn't properly stabilized. So,
Good question, Mr. Bill.
yeah, and that's the important part, the infiltration basin's working. They had to do it twice to make it work. And if you don't protect it from that sediment washing in and capping it, it doesn't work. Now the taxpayers are spending more money to fix something that should have been easily remedied by proper stabilization.
So that was permitted. Is there any kind of surety on that by chance, or we waived that?
As president, it was like,
Okay. All right, so I guess it's gonna, we're just gonna have to keep an eye on it.
Right, and
See what happens.
the city is,
Yeah, of
I
course.
think the main thing is they just want the contractor to come back and do the proper repairs like they should under the contract.
Okay. Good show. Any other items? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brower. Very good report. Please keep an eye on things, especially some of these critical ones, in my opinion. We don't want anything to get out of hand. So we'll leave that one. All right. Next items, managers. John, you put down this this for our workshop for the 10-year plan. And I did want to ask a question about that. If we couldn't meet here, do you have any idea where we might have to meet?
just when I could check with the city of Afton, or sometimes the Watershed District does kind of like a mobile library.
That's fine to me. Look at the twin, was it the twin point?
I'm kidding, it might not work out. So.
Yeah.
West Lakeland has a town hall now.
Yeah, we do.
Is that
We,
Attorney
is
Torres.
that our bailiwick?
Typically, we try to meet within Valley Branch Watershed District. Is there a
That's
requirement
just out.
that you need to meet with them?
Oh, is that outside of it?
Yeah.
No.
I think it's preferred. I can't remember. I think if you can, you should. If for some reason you couldn't, that's okay.
Yeah.
But
No, that's fine. I
It's in Milton.
didn't realize, didn't realize it was out.
Okay, well, we'll figure it out. I know it's not gonna be at the Lake Elmo Inn, but it's fine.
So managers, if you know your schedule, if you could let me know if any of these dates work. I think President Michon and Secretary Brock have always responded to
Right.
the
Right. So. You chosen when you get, yes, sir.
Just do the dual poll.
or let me know.
Up to you, yeah. And we'll square that away, and we want to have this meeting as soon as possible. And then we talked about the fluoride situation, Rick. That's definitely gonna go forward. We're gonna have that workshop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I haven't done anything on that. I've been doing
no problem. We're just putting together ideas at this point.
maybe.
And the other thought was, there are other watershed districts that have done very good things. We certainly want to look at that, and my thought was, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, so to speak,
Yeah.
so that's part of this. Okay. So everybody, do we have anything else regarding Don? Do you have any?
I did attend last week the water consortium again, I believe.
Okay.
Is it Adriana helped bring that to us? Again, it was one of the topic I'm very interested in, climate change, and there were two speakers. The first one I found most interesting. The second one was interesting, but she was much more agriculture related. The farmers can be more progressive and things like diversity of what they're doing and carbon sequestration. The first speaker was Alexis Monty from Wild Rivers Conservancy, which focuses on conservation in the entire St. Croix watershed, so Wisconsin and Namakogan as well. And she spoke to the three main strategies for adaptation, resistance, resilience, and transition. So resilience is doing things that make a system more resilient to the stressors. So simple example for what we do is to build, stormwater management systems for the storms of the future rather than what we're.
Right.
Today. It was good. It was very well done. A lot of it I'd heard before, but I'd like to hear it again and hear other people speak about it from their perspective. So it was another good session.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
And the second speaker?
The second speaker was, so I, it was
Related.
Teresa Opheim, who's with a group called Climate Land Leaders, and she was actually a farm owner herself down in Iowa, correct? And she's formerly the director of a group called Practically Farmers of Iowa, I believe. And so it made me think of, if I could put it in the chat, of a great documentary on Netflix right now called Kiss the Ground, about how that farmers don't go the industrial route that we see today, which is intensive corn and soybean rotation. Then they do things like manage for crop rotations and livestock back on their land. They can actually, so modern agriculture removes the carbon from the soil,
Right.
mineralizes the soil, and it requires huge inputs of nutrients and herbicides and chemicals to grow corn and soybeans ad nauseum. The hero in that, it's called Kiss the Ground. I highly recommend it. It's really good. Narrated by Woody Harrelson. He's a guy in Mandan, North Dakota. When I first showed him, I figured he was going to be the evil one in the documentary. He's the hero that completely transformed his farm. And there were sheep and chickens and a variety of crops, and he was earning an honest living, and he turned an ecological system into something that was actually serving a lot of good benefits.
I've seen videos on this.
Yeah, and that's kind of what the second speaker spoke to. Just wasn't quite as germane to what we deal with, but still very interesting.
Useful down the road for sure.
Yeah.
And something that we have to look at.
Yeah.
Our backyards are, saw a video, our backyards are national parks, so to speak. And we have to create the diversity and everything. I won't waste your time here, but yeah, we start in our own backyards, bee production and all that. It's gonna benefit all of us.
I might add, there's, just the practices like no-till seeding and things like that, because preserving topsoil, but also not sending that topsoil then downstream into the creeks.
Yeah.
Into the river.
Yeah.
And so, those practices too,
That's right.
One of the last of the three strategies for adaptation is transition, which means the systems are going to change. So let's help them change to something that's going to be good. So a really good example is where we've lost a lot of ash to the ash borer. Let's transition that system to oak savanna, which we have a lot of in this part anyways. And oak savanna is actually a landscape that's very climate resilient. Can handle drought. It infiltrates a lot of water because of the understory. And so the grants that we help fund through the conservation district, the pollinator habitat stuff, that's pretty much doing that as well. So we're helping this. We're helping transition with some of the things that we fund right here. So
This is uplifting. The rest of my evening is gonna be better already. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, sir. That was very good. Yeah, thank you all. See, some of our meetings are not so boring. We're trying to do good. Okay. Are there any other items that any of the managers wish to address? Rick, we're good to go, sir?
Yeah, we're continuing to
Okay.
move on our way. Those are the new checks.
I have your check, sir. Not bad looking.
Mr. Chair, I just encourage managers to try to attend the summer tour.
Okay,
We have a handout on that. Registration is open, so it's right here in the cities, co-hosted by Cap Region and Ramsey, Washington.
right, and we cover that. So, meaning Valley Branch Watershed District covers manager attendance. I don't know if anybody needs to,
Second day I'll be covered by
right,
Minnesota Watersheds. I got a board meeting. that
Yeah.
day.
I was referring to any, staying anywhere, any hotel or anything like that. It's not that far away. Okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's something to consider. And I don't know if we need any more reminders, but something to look at. So, all right then. And thank you for attending.
Yep, thank you.
Peanut and what? Peanut, Poppy and peanut?
Like peanut, like little peanut, you
Yeah.
know, and little poppy, like the poppy
I
seed.
thought you were gonna say with what we've seen lately.
So these aren't big dogs.
Yeah, like pit bulls or something.
Well, they think they're big, but they're little schnauzers.
They're schnauzers?
Yes.
They don't mess
But they
around
think
either.
They're big.
Okay.
They're actually tough dogs.
Yeah, they are.
Holy cow.
You can hear them play as day outside when they're inside the house barking.
Wow.
They got a good bark on them, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right,
Thank
with
you.
that, I have one more item. Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Nice.
We're done. Thank you, folks.
Thank
Thank you.